Hi, I'm Brittany.
And I'm Jen.
And we're the Village Homeschoolers. Today we're going to interview our friend Brandy, who is one of our founding members of the co-op that we currently run. All right, welcome to the Village. Today we have an exciting treat. You don't just have to listen to Jen and I talk at each other for 30 minutes.
Which is nice.
And we're going to interview a really good friend of ours. Her name is Brandy, and she is actually one of the original founding members of the co-op that we currently run. She's still a member of our co-op, and we're so excited to have her here today.
I'm excited to be here.
Yay, welcome.
She's
All right.
a lovely talking voice.
Yes, she's, yeah, she sounds great. And we're so excited. We're actually holed up in a library room that holds a few co-op stories for our co-op before Jen and I were in it.
It does, yes.
Yeah. So, Brandy, tell us about yourself. Tell us about your family.
I'm originally from Texas, grew up in a large family. I was homeschooled myself, K through 12. Really into long distance canoe racing, which is a very obscure sport.
It is. I remember you saying something to me about that, but I forgot about that until you just said it.
The Texas Water Safari, look it up.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyway, met my husband at a school in Texas. He lived up here in New England, and so got married 16 odd years ago. We have 4 kids, been a full-time homeschooler the whole time they were children.
Yeah.
They still are children?
They still are. I'm still homeschooling my 3 youngest. My oldest now goes to a technical high school. He's a freshman there, and he's loving it.
That's awesome.
That's me.
Awesome. Well, we are excited to know you and have you. So you were a homeschooler. Your husband was a homeschooler.
Yep.
So it was kind of just a foretold conclusion.
Yeah, that was our default.
Yeah.
That's what was normal and comfortable to us. It wasn't until I had a kid at first grade level that I was like, I guess we could put him in public school. That is a thing.
People
Some
do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, why did you stick with homeschooling after that point when you realized, oh, wait a minute?
Right. Most of the time, because, parenting is a partnership.
Yeah.
And there have been numerous times since about first grade where I was like, you know what? I'm pretty sure I'm sucking at this. Let's put him in school. And my husband was like, oh, no. Have you heard about public school? We're not putting our kids in.
Right.
So it wasn't until quite recently that he finally got to a place where, high school is a special opportunity. It's a tech school. He gets to learn a trade. There's extenuating reasons why it's worth putting up with the crap. And there is crap, but, it has been worth it, though, too. So.
Good. I mean, there's crap in homeschooling, too.
There is. Yes, there is.
It's kind of the situation where there's human beings and none of us are perfect, so there's just crap everywhere.
So why did you want to join a co-op, though, or create one?
Well, I was a very isolated homeschooler. Homeschoolers love to poo-poo the whole socialization question. Homeschoolers are perfectly well socialized.
Well, you have 4 kids, so that
but
socialize with each other.
It's also really common to be isolated. You might develop social skills, but that doesn't mean you have solid friend groups necessarily. So a lot of homeschoolers do, but it's not a guarantee. Those don't come automatic with deciding to homeschool. If they're not naturally occurring, you have to go find them.
Yeah.
Also, I felt like our homeschool needed that extra boost of my kids getting that classroom experience of being with other kids their age that are not their siblings and a teacher who is not their mom. You need that break and that variety. So those were the primary motivators.
Did you look for a co-op?
Oh, yeah.
So you looked.
Yeah.
There just wasn't.
There was the closest co-op I could find that was open to new people was an hour and a half away.
Oh, my gosh.
Wow. So why were they not open to new people?
There were 2 co-ops that I remember finding that were welcoming new people.
Wow.
At the time. And then there were some others, there was a Classical Conversations, but I didn't have $500 a kid to plop down on that.
Yeah, it's
I'm not really
crazy.
classical kind of person anyway. But mostly homeschool co-ops. I found out later there are lots of homeschool co-ops in our state, but most of them are not easily findable by someone who doesn't already know they exist.
Right.
You have to know somebody that knows something in order to find them.
Right.
And I didn't know people. So all I had was Google.
Right.
And, the local, Facebook homeschool like support groups. And I wasn't finding much on there either.
So you said, let's start our own.
Yeah. I kind of got to a breaking point. I think my oldest, it was starting to become clear he was very dyslexic. We were really just very feeling struggling hard. And I was like, babe, if we're gonna keep homeschooling, we need a homeschool co-op in our life, and I can't find one for us to join. And he's like, so start one. I was like,
That's so nice.
okay.
Oh, that easy, right?
Thanks, partner. Yeah.
But it was good that I had his support because,
Yes.
as it turned out, that became quite an endeavor.
Right.
Now, did you have a co-op growing up when you were homeschooled?
No, my parents were involved in a homeschool cooperative, which basically boiled down to there was a newsletter and field trips once a month. And the primary purpose of the cooperative was, I mean, I grew up back in the days when homeschooling, like, people weren't really sure if this was legal.
Yeah.
So like, all of the adults involved were kind of like, we're not sure if somebody's going to come knocking on our door and have some problems. So the cooperative was kind of like, the way it was explained to me, it was like, if somebody comes knocking on our door,
This
we
is
can
our
say,
cover?
like, we're part of this organization that make sure that, like, our kids are okay, or I don't know.
So like
but-
an umbrella
I
kind
think,
of.
yeah,
something,
in a lot of
something
states
like
they call them umbrella schools now.
Right.
I think that's where they've evolved. I don't.
Right.
Okay, so that was your childhood experience.
All right. So how did it go starting a co-op?
Yeah,
I mean,
so-
obviously
so what
it's
did you
going well
do?
now.
Yeah. Well,
Going so well.
most days.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So so you decided, okay, we need this, and what did you do next?
So what I did, there was a local homeschool thing on Facebook that I had been part of for a while. I had actually started a homeschool recess activity that met once a week on a certain afternoon at different parks, and people could just come and play. So I already had some connections with there and some experience with, like, putting something out there and people responded. So that's where I put my original post, like, my family really needs a co-op and I can't find one to join, so I'm willing to start one. Anybody with me? From that, there was overwhelming response in the comments section. So I quickly realized there was no way to organize this in the comments section of a Facebook post.
Although people try.
Indeed. Indeed. So I pulled into my old marketing knowledge from my photography business and used MailChimp to set up an email list. And there was an onboarding questionnaire I could put in there to get a feel for, like, where do you live? How many kids do you have? What are their ages? Like, what age groups are you looking at? What are your skills and backgrounds? Like, what kind of co-op are you interested in? Like, really small, really big, kind of medium? Are you more into homesteading or forest school, or like a very traditional academic, like, kind of get a feel for what people wanted and needed, and then use that to make sure I didn't lose track of all the people that were interested. There was, I believe, over 100 families.
Wow.
That got on that sign-up list.
Oh my gosh.
So there was a huge, this was, 7-8 years ago?
Yeah, it was before I lived here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, like, this was before there was a pandemic on that made everybody know what was going on.
Yeah.
There's an overwhelming need for more co-ops.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Wow. All right. So after that point, you've collected the data, and those of you who don't know this, Brandy is actually our best data collector.
I do like some data.
Yeah. Well, and I still will make survey forms, and they're all Brandy's old survey forms. I just change the wording, and then when we
Why
need to
reinvent the wheel?
Yeah, when we need to pan our co-op and see what everyone wants to do, I just use the Brandy surveys because they're amazing. So that was smart. So that doesn't shock me that you did that. But then what did you do after that? You had 100 people.
Yeah. So we needed a face-to-face meeting. So we scheduled one of those, and boy, howdy, wasn't it an adventure. The day before that meeting, there was one person who had reached out on that mailing list who really stood out to me. She was willing to help lead, and she'd had experience as helping to start the local charter school in our area. And I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
We need you. Yeah.
Yeah, so I messaged her privately and was like, hey, would you be willing to help lead this meeting? So excited you're here and everything. And she said she would. So we met for breakfast. We talked over, like, okay, what do we need to cover? Like, what are our goals here? But then, we showed up to the meeting, and there were some people who did not show up as their best selves that day, and did not come to engage in good faith. And there was one person in particular who had been very offended that I had gotten all this momentum going when she had apparently been talking about starting a co-op for a while.
Oh.
And then I had kind of, I guess, swooped in and stole her thunder without acknowledging her prior leadership.
Oh my goodness.
And including her in
Yeah, but co-ops don't just materialize out of thin air. You have to put in the groundwork, right?
It was weird. But it was bad enough that my husband was downstairs in the basement of this place we were meeting, watching kids.
Oh.
And it got so loud and contentious, he came up to check.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. You can ask other friends who were there. It was really something. And he, surveyed the scene, and then he, came right up front, and very quietly he was like, "Are you okay? Do you need me to get involved?" And I was like,
And he's not really, he's not an obtrusive person.
No.
He would not do that unless it was really warranted.
I was trembling for the next 3 days.
Oh,
it was so...
goodness.
Wow, that really makes you want to do a co-op, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Wow. Right.
But this is good because I feel like sometimes, unintentionally or intentionally, homeschoolers put out this utopian personality.
Exactly.
We have egos.
Oh, yes.
We're not all nice.
There's all kinds of personalities. Yes. And we all, we're not always our best selves.
Right.
So, but the flip side of that, there was a very stressful meeting, but there were people there who reached out quietly once the shouting was over and were like, "I think what you want to do is really important and meaningful, and I want to be part of it. How can I help?" And those people formed a team.
And you still continue to be inclusive, which
Yes.
is amazing.
Yes. Although, what was really interesting, the person who was most outspoken at that meeting and was just completely wanted to shut down what we were doing, didn't presented that this does not make sense, this is not what we want, the next day she emailed and was like, "I would like to volunteer to be a leader of the co-op you're forming." And we were like, "Oh, wow." Okay.
Sorry, we're full.
Yeah.
Well, that was such a foundational experience for our group because we had put forth this idea already. My dream was to build a co-op that was findable in an internet search.
Right.
So people like me could make that connection if they were new to homeschooling or new to the area. It was also that it would be inclusive. It would be welcoming to everybody who came. So that made it very obvious on day one. We needed to lay out our ground rules, as it were, for our group very carefully, so that anyone could join. And even this person that had really set us back on our heels, and we're like, "Whoa, we didn't know homeschoolers would come at us like this for trying to start a co-op," right? We needed to be able to communicate very clearly up front, this is what we expect of ourselves and each other in this organization. So that we had grounds then to say, "You are violating the code of conduct."
Yeah.
And,
we need a code of conduct so we can tell you you're violating it.
Exactly.
Right.
But it made us think through very carefully, what is our mission, vision, and values? What is our code of conduct?
Right.
So it was a blessing in disguise.
Right. Right.
So where did you go from there?
Well, there were a gang of 5.
Out of those 100?
Isn't that always the way, though?
Well, see, part of the thing was not everybody wanted the co-op that I wanted. Obviously,
gotcha.
Some people wanted a forest school, and some people wanted to get together with just 3 or 4 families. So part of what I did at that juncture was there were people who wanted to help build what I wanted to build, and everyone else, I would categorize off. These people all said that they wanted a forest or a nature co-op. And so I emailed all them. Here's each other's contact information. You all want the same thing. Good luck.
Yeah. Godspeed. Yeah.
Right. And I honestly don't know what came of all that. I heard of 2 co-ops forming shortly after that time. I don't know if it was because of that or not. And I don't know what other co-ops may have started or not started.
Yeah.
All I know is our story from that point forward. But there were 5 women that got together and had regular planning meetings to knock out the mission and vision and values and then figure out all the technical stuff of like, how do you get a co-op off the ground from scratch?
Right. Yeah. How do we pay for this? Where do we go?
Right. Right.
That's always fun stuff.
It was. So
yeah. Which is why when we're like, oh, this is how we do it, we're like, yeah, but we actually did not start this. Right. You guys laid the foundation.
Right.
And then we just took it and ran with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of where this library starts to come into the story, because we spent months trying to figure out, okay, so if you're a larger enough group to not be able to meet in each other's homes, which was our original starting out plan, you need a location. In order to get a location, you need insurance. In order to have insurance, you need to have people who have paid fees for a group. And in order to have a group, you need a location.
Yeah, and the circle goes on. Yeah.
Yes, it was really tricky. We tried reaching out to local libraries, and what we found is that many locations are very nervous about the concept of a homeschool co-op. If you don't have prior homeschooling experience, you don't know what a co-op is.
Right.
So we had a lot of like, I'm sorry, you want to do what?
Yeah.
So like, you want to start a school at our location?
Right.
Like, no.
Yeah.
We just
Not
want
at
to
all.
meet for some classes. Well, but why don't you just start a school then?
Yeah.
Because we don't want a school. That's not what this is.
Yeah.
And then they're concerned about the liability of having a school, which kept trying to say it's not a school, but
Yeah.
it's confusing.
Yeah.
So this library was one of the libraries that wouldn't get back to us at all. And
So thank goodness we're here today.
but we kind of snuck in under the wire, because after a while we kind of stalled out. Like, we couldn't figure out, okay, where now? We couldn't get the insurance. We couldn't get a location. And a couple of the people who were involved were like, you know what, this isn't happening right now. My kids need something.
Right.
So
What do you just go and hang out in the kids section for an hour?
Not almost. So they independently were like, hey, we'd like to hold a homeschool science class, I believe it was, for a certain age group. Can we use one of your rooms? And they're like, sure. Because it was like one
and
small
done.
group, one class. And
Yeah.
they're like, yeah, we can do that. And then they put out the word. I had a kid who was that age. I was like, hey, yeah, can we do that? Also, could we do like a younger kids class and we could run registration for you? So we almost like stole their thing and put it under the co-op name, but without ever telling the library.
Right.
And at that point, I'd put together a website. So
You stole the library's classes?
No. This other group of parents.
right, who had been part of planning our co-op, so they were cool with it.
Okay, they weren't the mean ones?
It was consensual.
No, they were great. It was consensual, but we also were like, wow, you finally got something going. Can we just kind of like come in and call it co-op?
Ours?
Right. And that gave us just enough momentum from that class, because we really didn't want to come back here. This particular library is not ideal for holding a co-op.
No.
And they weren't super welcoming in the first place to the idea of it being a co-op. But one of the families that came to those first classes, the mom was on the board of a community center which was very close by, and we could get that for free without an insurance requirement.
Ah, yes.
So
The barn.
Like to call it the barn.
Which was a perfect place to start and grow. It didn't last forever. It was a one-room barn situation.
That does not have heat.
That does not have heat.
We live in New England.
But it was enough to keep it going
Yeah.
until once you have a membership base, then you can buy insurance. Although we ended up finding 4-H, which really eased up the insurance necessity.
And helps with the inclusion thing, because financial inclusivity is difficult when you're trying to pay for several $100s worth of insurance. So that ended up being kind of godsend, because
it really did.
Yeah,
and I never would have seen that coming. I mean, like, I'm not a farm person. I didn't think I was 4-H type people.
Right. Well, and that's why you
4-H is so
joined,
much
because
more.
you thought we were farm people.
I thought it was like chickens. I was totally like stoked about it.
Yeah, Jen joined because I was in the barn for 4 months before we became a 4-H group too, and you joined right at the 4-H group inception.
Yeah.
When we had worked that out, and so I remember the barn. The barn actually came up in conversation about something else, that we may be back at the barn for one event,
Which would be fun.
I think it'd be fun. It was a great space.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is.
But
The green space behind it is fantastic.
Yeah, just can't be there in the winter.
Yeah.
Just cold. Yeah. All right. So you had a small group going. You were meeting at the community center at the barn.
Right.
And you were just kind of rolling along. And how many people were in the co-op at that point? Do you remember? Because I know I was, but I don't remember how
I want to
many.
say at least 10 families.
Yeah.
Maybe more 10 to 15 range.
Right.
Hard to say.
Right.
I actually stepped away. Well, and interestingly enough, so I was one of the leaders that got it started. But because I had riled that one person so much at that meeting, I was really concerned about taking on the leadership title.
Right.
Also, there were two women who were far more qualified and did a great. One of the ladies in that original planning team had been a co-op leader of multiple co-ops in another where she had lived before. So she had fantastic experience. The other friend was the person who helped me lead that meeting, who had helped start the charter school. And they were the perfect people to get this off the ground. They had so much insight and wisdom that they brought to it. But that made it easy for me to step away right as Jen was coming on board. Actually, my mom had terminal cancer and was in those final days. It was far away. And so and it was a drama. Was the
that's when
focus
we
of
did
that session.
We did a theater
Yeah,
class.
it was just
And I was
one
like,
class.
We're going to be in and out of state. I don't even know how much. Like, we can't
Right.
do a theater class.
Well,
right
you ended
now.
up being the only leader left because everybody else stepped down.
Right.
But not at that point, because
No, not
that's
at that point.
true. Because when
Right. At that point, I wasn't even officially a leader.
Yeah.
I was doing a lot of admin tasks. I was the communications person from day one.
because you were the
I
first
did
person I
the
spoke to.
website and the registration. If people emailed, I was the one that would respond.
Right.
All the announcement emails and the text reminders.
Yeah.
All the things.
It is funny though, because then everybody else was like, we need a break, or we're taking a break, and then you were still hanging on.
Well, part of it, so our original goals when we started, we wanted it to be findable, we wanted to be inclusive. And that was one of the things that we really talked about at first. Like, what does inclusive mean? It meant that we wanted to welcome people of all learning abilities or disabilities or physical abilities and disabilities. We wanted to welcome people of all religious backgrounds or lack thereof. And there were actually two of the people in that group who, all five of us were Christians, but two of them really wanted it to be a religious co-op. And when we reached that juncture, they were like, if it's not going to be a religious co-op, then I'm not sure I should continue as a leader. Like, we fully support what you're doing, but I need to step back.
Right.
And we were able to do that on really positive terms.
Okay.
I mean, they gave so much.
Right.
We're incredibly grateful to both of them. But the other three of us, we really wanted our children to be around people with all different backgrounds and belief structures. But the other side of inclusivity was, we wanted to welcome new people, which was why we spent so much time on code of conduct and all that stuff.
Right.
Get rid of the riffraff.
Well, no, you're gonna have difficult situations come up in humor.
Absolutely. And you need a way to handle
You
it.
have to be prepared for it in
Right.
advance.
Yeah.
It can't come up and surprise you.
Right.
Yeah, because then you could be like, look at this
Exactly.
rule. I need you to chill out.
And without showing you our code of conduct and our rules, they're very open and concise. It wasn't like there was here's your 101 things you need to agree to.
Right.
So it was just, it's like basic human decency, I think is how I would describe it.
Because that's an important thing to do. You can't make your rules too specific.
Right.
They have to be pretty broad so that they can grow and change with you. So we've grown and changed a lot.
Yeah.
And so many iterations of how we've operated. Because it's kind of like a laboratory where you try something and parts of it work and parts of it you're like, you get ideas for how you could do it better. And it just keeps going.
Yeah, well, the group has changed a lot, at least leadership since I started. I remember when I first started, I was like, this is intense. And you guys were having multiple meetings a week.
You guys were very dedicated time-wise.
About multiple meetings a week. None of us had that.
Well, maybe it just felt that way because each one of them was 4 hours long, and we're going to talk about how we're going to word this,
Right.
Which we're grateful for.
We are, but it was a lot of work, and that's why I was afraid at first to join up as a leader because I was like, I don't have time for this.
Right. Oh, I remember where I was going earlier. Talking.
This happens to us a lot.
Where
This
are
is
we
why the
headed
meetings
here?
were 4 hours long. Yeah.
But one of our goals was that we didn't want this co-op to be dependent on us being its leaders forever.
Yeah.
Like we wanted it to be something that was structurally sound enough to hand off to other people and that could outlive us. Which we have succeeded at.
Yeah.
Here you are.
Yes. Yeah. Now we have to do that eventually, Jen.
Which is terrifying.
Right. But I think we got a couple years in and we were like, you know, we need to build into it. Like, because you could just keep leading forever. Right.
You could.
I mean, yeah, you could.
And sometimes you get going and you're just like, well, it's easier to just keep going.
Right. And sometimes like it's not obvious who would step up.
Right.
Like it wasn't obvious that either of you would step up.
Well, we may have said no a few times.
Yeah.
Well, Brandy was more like, we're going to shut down if somebody doesn't lead. And I was like, oh, okay.
We put a limitation on ourselves. We were like, you know what? We think it would be important for leaders to be to be a leader for no longer than 3 years at a time. And then you need to take at least 1 year off and you can come back.
We've just recently broken that.
Just recently. But you know, like that maybe the rule needs to change. But that's
COVID and
Exactly. COVID was a weird fluke.
Yeah.
Anyway, so and then also like the idea of try to have overlapping leadership.
Right.
So that you don't lose institutional knowledge.
Right.
Well, you know, it's been so kind of seamless working with Brittany and our other leader that
Although
I don't feel like it's
we
been that
did
long.
just talk about somebody. We did talk about. So if you're listening to this, they're like,
warned.
oh no, the email's coming. Yeah. But we did just talk about like, oh, we should ask that person if they're interested.
somebody with younger kids.
Right.
So half our co-op is terrified right now.
Yeah, but
I have younger kids.
We had two original leaders. The first one stepped down because her kids were ready to enroll in school, and the co-op no longer was a need for them. The other leader stayed on for the full 3-year term, and then stepped down because it was the end of her term. We had one leader that was in for briefly during that interim period that didn't do a full year term, but that was a personality. We had an empath on our hands.
Yes.
And the emotional she's very conscientious and detail oriented and great in many ways, but it was just like so overwhelming.
Yeah, and she's still in the co-op.
Yeah. She's amazing at teaching and all the other things, but just like the leading piece was not a good fit for her.
Right.
Well, it's not a good fit for everybody. Like, I don't even think it's not even a good fit for me. I just,
But we
I do
disagree.
it.
You've made it a good fit for you.
Right.
You've found the way to make it. And that's one of the beautiful things about how this co-op has worked out. The way it has been led in the past, it's not the way it's led in the present. And it didn't need to be.
Right.
Yes.
Like, it would have been impossible to duplicate that because every person brings their own experience and personality and instincts to it. And it's good.
Yeah.
Like we needed that freshening.
Right. I mean, and like you said earlier, like we try things, they don't work. Then we try things and they do. We've talked about the lunch fiasco.
Yes.
You were there for that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But like for a long time, like lunch did not work.
Yeah.
Like feeding kids was a fiasco.
well, that tiny space that we had,
Oh, that was tough.
Yeah.
it's so loud and deafening. And
But now if we did not have a lunch hour, it would be a disaster. So sometimes the situation changes and
Let's admit it right now. Homeschool kids love packing a lunch and eating with their friends.
That's true.
Because
they just love eating.
that's part of it.
Yeah.
But how many books do you read and movies you watch that include the kids at lunchtime sitting with their friends eating their packed lunch?
Yeah.
Right.
So it's,
Yeah, it's the only time they use the lunchbox.
Exactly. It's very important.
Yeah.
Well, I
So
don't know. My son packed a lunch to go to your house today.
Did he?
Yeah, he's not going to eat it. But he
It's
brought
true.
it.
Oh, well, maybe
It's fun to pack a lunch when
It's
you're a
so-
homeschooler.
Yeah, you don't
So
do
into it. He's
The
like, I have
novelty is
snacks.
there.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So, what benefits do you think the co-op has provided for your family?
Friends.
Yeah.
That is the number one. Like my third born daughter, who's very social, she will sometimes tell me, like, Mom, I'm really glad you started this co-op because before you did, I didn't have any friends. I used to just talk to Siri on the iPad.
Oh, my son says the same thing. He's like, I'm so glad to co-op because I have friends now and I didn't before.
Right.
And it's so
my
sad.
gosh.
Like, what stereotypical homeschoolers are we? Like, sorry, son, you're allowed out of the closet today.
Well, yeah, that's true. Well, and my kids are very social, especially my oldest, and she's like, if we aren't doing regular co-op things, she's like, well, what do you mean? What are we doing? There's no point in,
Right.
even existing.
Yeah.
Why am I doing this math work if I can't go hang out
Exactly. It's the carrot stick you look forward to. It's
Right.
the thing you get all your schoolwork done so that it's done before co-op day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and the friends for us as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's
the
nice.
adult friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
The adult friends, it's so huge.
It
I
is.
was at least as isolated as my kids were.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The other benefit has literally been to me, and it's mostly the friend thing. Like
Right.
the being part of this co-op, getting it going, and then the ongoing relationships, like it's been one of the most meaningful things I've ever done.
Right.
And I've really made some incredible friends. And there are people like the 4 women that I worked with initially, I would never have met them had it not been for that. And
I
they
didn't
were amazing.
actually realize that the one who was with us the longest from that group, that you didn't have a previous relationship with her
No.
until you said that today.
Never met any of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, that's why adults need a homeschool co-op too.
Yeah, because I definitely meet people that I wouldn't naturally be drawn to. Like I probably would never naturally been drawn to you just because you're, different backgrounds and I'm kind of annoying,
And would we have run into each other doing the same things?
No, probably not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
It brings people together.
Yeah, it does. All right. Do you have a funniest co-op memory?
I have a lot of sad
Well, you can share those too. We don't edit that.
No, the things that come to yeah, I don't have funniest memories that come to mind for some reason. And it's not because funny things haven't happened.
Right.
It's like there's things that stick out in my mind, like the time there was that kid that just kept locked himself in the bathroom and kept flushing the toilet. I was supposed to be leading a song time, and I was like, "What do I even do?"
Yeah. So many. Yeah.
I'm so confused.
You bring up a good point, because I always tell Jen this, like, we'll leave co-op and everyone will be like, "That was a great day. Everyone had a good time." And I'm like, "Really?" Because I thought it was horrible.
Yeah.
And it's like, and really it's more because as I think a leader, we fixate on
What went wrong?
We deal with the problems.
the two, like I used to teach in a high school classroom, and I would always focus on the 2 kids who were not getting it.
Right.
And the other 18 in the room, were fine. And so really, if you're looking at it statistically, it was a success. But that's just not what the leader or the administrator.
Also, I tend to be isolated as a leader during the day because I am the one filling in all the space. So I'm not the one talking and having fun times like all the other moms are. I'm like, well, maybe I'll get to talk to somebody today. Wouldn't that be nice?
Except for me. Always get to talk to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man.
I'm glad we like each other. My goodness.
Well, yeah.
Why'd you say well?
Well, depends on the day, Jen. No, it is. It's so, yeah. But I was texting with you a couple days ago, and my husband goes, "Why are you laughing?" And I was like, and he goes, "Are you talking to Jen?" Yeah. I don't know what you said, but it was funny. Okay, so tell us.
So those LOLs are sincere?
Yes.
It's actual laughter.
I don't pity laugh you. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, it's funny. I'm glad you said that though, honestly, because that is always what sticks in my mind is like, I always see we often, and we did this when you were a leader too, because we led for a full year with you. There was 4 of us at that time.
Right.
Again, that institutional knowledge. And we would debrief. We'd be on a text train late at night or an email train, this happened. What are we going to do next week to make sure that this doesn't happen again? And blah, 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 blah. And we miss the glory of what the good stuff is a lot of the time. And then maybe that's our job. Yeah. Maybe we should add that to the job description.
Yeah. Well, it's not like...
Focus on the grayness of the cloud and not the silver lining.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I see all the smiles. I see kids having a wonderful time. So there's that too.
Right.
Right. But also you don't get to just spend all your time glorying in that. Because if you did, then the things that have to be addressed wouldn't get addressed.
Right.
'Cause that's the job of the leader.
Yeah.
Right.
It's kind of stinky sometimes.
Well,
And it can be.
yeah.
I had to go around and tell the moms to be quiet. And I hate that.
But man, it
But
works.
it works so well, and I know it's
Yeah.
necessary and it has to be done, but
And everyone still loves you. It's fine.
well.
Yeah. Well, oh yeah. I mean, it is a thing because, and then, well, and not to get into too much personal things, I think it's hard to also remove yourself from it. I don't know if you felt like this, but we had a situation last week where I got defensive And Jen had to talk me down off a cliff at 8 a.m. on text. Well, we were there in person. We were setting up, and it was just her and I. And I immediately was like Jen's like, remember, that we are not the group for every single person, and that's okay. Right. So I don't know if you ever felt like you were having to defend. Maybe necessarily.
Well, I remember those early surveys you used to put out, and I was like, I don't want to read these. These hurt my feelings. These are mean.
Yeah.
Because it's easier when you're not a leader to be able to focus on what is going wrong as well.
Right. I won't tell you. We're going to have to do another survey soon.
They better all be glowing. That's all I'm saying. If you're listening.
Be nice to Jen.
Yeah. No, I mean, you do. You get feedback from people that is not what you expect to hear. And you're like, what? But why are you feeling that way? That doesn't make sense.
Right.
But like, you have to know how people are feeling.
I don't have to know.
That's really...
I'd rather not.
She tries. Yeah.
Like one example, I remember there was one it was one of the things we have learned is that leaders cannot be teachers while they're leading.
Oh yeah.
And we've all tried that.
Yeah, it's been tried. One of the ways that we learned that is you were teaching one session, Brittany.
Yeah.
And I found out afterwards that you were on the verge of quitting because your classroom experience was so chaotic.
Yes.
And there wasn't, like, you were in the middle of teaching a class. There was all this chaos going on around the class that was making it almost impossible to teach. And there was nobody in charge outside of you that could be like, whoa, let's calm this down. Brittany's trying to do a class over here. Me and the other leader were in the middle of teaching classes at that time. Right. So we were not available to just like go around, scope out, make sure everything was okay. People had what they needed. Like there was no one to play that role. Right. And so if it hadn't been for that survey where we got that like really disheartening feedback that we had totally dropped the ball on that and that a teacher was really like that was not fun to read.
I know.
But it was complete. No.
Like I wrote it.
Because we needed to know that. We
Right.
made important changes after that have made the whole co-op so much better.
And it's so funny because that's one of those rules now that we sometimes think about breaking.
Yeah. We do.
And then we go, remember? No.
Yeah.
No. Well, because when I first started, people that were leading were teaching 2 or 3 classes.
Right. And cleaning.
And cleaning.
Right.
And doing,
We were doing
everything.
Yeah.
And it was really unfair. Like
And unsustainable.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
Well, we weren't able to do all of it well.
Yeah.
Because we were trying to do too much.
Well, isn't that the truth? Yeah. All right. So if you were talking to somebody who was starting a co-op or thinking about it, on the verge of making that leap, what would you tell them?
I would tell them, reach out. You will be surprised who you might run into.
Yeah.
That could become a lifelong friend, an amazing human that you're just so grateful to have in your life. But be specific. Be very specific and be careful in your follow-up to like actually follow up in a meaningful way. I frequently will see homeschoolers put out word in a Facebook group like, hey, we're in such and such an area. We have kids these ages and we really need friends. Anybody want to join us for... But it's very vague. And you get a little bit of like 1 or 2 people who will maybe be interested. If you're like the more specific you are, the more people are able to latch on to that.
So you have no regrets?
Oh, wow.
You should see her face right now.
Yeah, I mean, like there are things where if I could have known, if I'd had a crystal ball, I could have done some things better. But at the time, I went on what I knew and just tried stuff and saw what stuck and then learned from it. And I don't think I could have done any different than that.
Right. So there's nothing you don't think you would change?
Oh, I mean,
not without the crystal ball.
Yeah. That's why you have to try. You have to just try stuff and be like, well, that was horrible. We won't do that again.
Exactly. Like I give myself huge amounts of grace for not knowing what I didn't know.
Right.
And I'm just really glad I at least tried something.
Right. Yes, something, anything. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And it sometimes it looks like a great idea. Brandy, you and I were talking about this a couple weeks ago. We were like, sometimes you have a lesson plan for a class and then you're like, yeah, that's great. Perfect. Done. Check. And then you watch the class and you're like, well, this was not how I saw this going.
Right.
You know? But like there's no way to tell that until you do it. And
so you try something and then you adjust.
Yes.
Experience,
that's
right?
the whole thing.
Yes. And we have so many stories like that. Is it feel weird to have other people leading something you started?
It feels amazing.
Oh.
It does.
That's good.
In fact, for the first, I think, year after I had reached my full term of service and I had stepped down as a leader, I didn't teach either.
No.
Because I could.
Yes.
Right.
Because I stepped back and I was like, this thing runs without me doing anything but helping clean. This is amazing.
Yeah.
And in a way, did I miss it? Yes. I miss that close relationship that leaders develop. I like you guys a lot.
Yeah, I like you too.
We don't hang out as much.
That's true.
I mean, we were meeting at your house like once a week.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I mean, we could do that and just, hang out.
yeah.
I guess.
It's easier if you have to do it.
I know.
You have a reason.
I
that
know.
pushes
And I
you.
think that's a homeschool parent personality too, right? Like our lives revolve so much around our families and our kids.
And yes, there's times then I'll see a move made, an email come through, and I'll be like, oh, I would have done that differently. But it's fine. I didn't have to do it at all. And this will get the job done.
Right.
We're golden.
Yeah, right. Well, and it is valuable to have your feedback sometimes. I mean, you just handed us a very valuable tip a couple weeks ago that I was like, yeah, I was noticing that too, but I couldn't figure out how we could solve that problem. Yeah. And you have experience being a leader in solving that problem, and we appreciate the input. So.
I don't actually remember what you're talking about, but I'm glad
she's like, yeah.
The singing.
right, yes.
Which, by the way, you have a fantastic voice. Because my husband complimented you, and he does not do that very often as far as singing, because I think he compared my singing to a rhinoceros giving birth to farm equipment.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
Has he heard that? A rhinoceros giving birth to farm
I guess so. He has a comparison to base it off of. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
I think it was just so shocking that someone would sing at co-op that it was like, wow, oh, okay.
Yeah, we're doing this.
If you stood me up next to Britney Spears, you would not be impressed.
Well, no. I don't think that's a good comparison. I don't think she's a good singer.
If I'm honest, I've never listened to Britney Spears. I know, like that name pops in my mind, but I actually don't know her as a singer.
Well, and there's the most homeschooling thing we've said all today.
Isolation.
Indeed.
We're talking about isolation now.
Yeah. I mean, isn't she like older than us?
Yes.
I think we're the same age, Brittany.
Well, you and all the three of us are.
No. Brandy's a little older than us.
I'm 38.
I'm only 37, so.
Oh, I am too. I didn't realize you were a year older. I thought we were the same age. I think Britney Spears is 40 though, isn't she?
No, I think she's.
Oh, you were saying Britney Spears.
Does have the same name as me. And I am not Britney Spears for any of you wondering if I was masquerading as a co-op mom. Yeah.
Now that she's out of the hospital, she's doing great.
Right.
I'm free. Wasn't that a whole thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't need to get into that,
No,
but
do not.
yeah. I thought she was actually older than us, which doesn't make me feel great about myself. I'm going to be honest, but well, maybe it does. I don't know. I don't think she has a very enviable life.
No, heck no.
Now we're on a tangent.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else we want to ask on here?
I guess I would add that it is my impression that in most places around our country, there's a shortage of co-ops. Mm-hmm. I think that co-ops are a very meaningful and valuable part of the homeschooling experience. Mm-hmm. And the reason there aren't enough is because there aren't enough people stepping up to lead them. And that can be scary. I have experienced how scary it can be. But you don't have to go as dramatic as I did. You
start small, right?
You can start small. In fact, I'd advise it. Like what I did worked out because I was lucky enough to have the right people come alongside me. And we had some lucky breaks along the way. But it was more intense than it had to be in many ways.
Yeah.
So,
now, you can only do co-op once a week. Isn't that the law in this state? Is that the deal?
This is highly debated where we live. Basically, the rule has been explained to me by the legal minds, smarter than mine, that if it looks like a private school and it acts like a private school, it will be regulated as a private school. Mm-hmm. So take that for what you will. I think it depends. There is oversight in other states. For instance, another state fairly close to us, their co-op hands in like records and has health forms for the children and those kinds of things. It's a state that highly regulates homeschooling, and we live in one that does not. So that could be that. I think
in a non-legal sense, No, I couldn't do co-op more than once a week.
Yeah,
because
emotionally.
we need the other 4 days
Yeah.
to get our actual schoolwork done
Yeah.
and to recover.
I think when we started this co-op, I think I was meeting once a week for co-op, and then like a friend or two from the co-op would be like, let's go to the park on another day, and it was worked out fine. But as my kids have gotten older, that's become harder because of other schoolwork, other responsibilities, cleaning my house.
Yeah.
Occasionally.
Yeah, that does not happen on co-op days.
No.
Not much happens on co-op days for me, so
Yeah.
Just co-op.
it's a long day.
Yeah, that's always the thing. I remember you saying to a new parent one time, you said, Brandy said, don't plan to do anything else on this day. Like, you don't
Except going home and crying.
Yeah, okay. Well, crying may not be right. But like, go home, easy dinner, and go to bed.
Yeah.
Wasn't it you, or maybe it was somebody that said that originally, like, you know how we all get in July and August, we're like, we're going to plan out this great academic year for our kids.
Right.
And then, I thought it was you, but correct me if I'm wrong. And then somebody put extra school like in the afternoon on a Friday for their kids. And it lasted like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
That's impressive that they managed 3 weeks.
Yeah. Maybe it was, so it wasn't you. Somebody did it, and then they were like, this was a horrible idea. And I was like, we need to remember to tell every new person the day you do co-op is just for co-op.
Right.
Because even when I schedule, like, we're going to do this on the weekend, it never happens. Like, who am I kidding? It's never going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
I usually am just silly about like, well, I'll go home and clean the house afterwards. And then you get home and I don't know, I'm actually very introverted. This is part of the reason I was so isolated. Like I need a structure to welcome me in order to be able to interact with people. But I also get overwhelmed with the interactions. So I get home after co-op and I can mostly just lie down and not talk to people.
That's great. But you at least have 4 kids because my son talks so much, like all the questions. I'm like, stop. I love you, but please don't talk to me anymore.
It is a very stimulating environment. That's one of those things. Only do co-op on co-op day. A valuable lesson.
Thank you, Brandy.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. Maybe we'll have you back, or other people that have helped you along the way. We'd love to hear from them too. Awesome. Alrighty, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed chatting with our friend Brandy and the two of us. If you are somebody who has started a co-op like Brandy, we'd love to chat with you. You can find us, if you'd like to chat with us, on Instagram, Facebook, and at thevillagehomeschoolers@gmail.com. Have a great day, everyone.